Brian Kelly's LSU Tigers make their way to College Station this Saturday to face off against Texas A&M in another road game following their 34-10 win over Arkansas in Fayetteville last weekend. As fans look forward to that upcoming contest, Guilbeau and Todd Horne welcome Yahoo Sports reporter Ross Dellenger for a preview, as well as comment on his recent top 10 list of the best teams in college football at this point in the season, surprisingly including just one team from the SEC. I'm your host, Jake McMains, and we'll hear from Dellenger right after a quick word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Mike Munderland, and we're here to smash the capital city's trash.
Smash My Trash is a revolutionary compactor for large dumpsters, sometimes reducing the volume of waste by up to 70%. This means fewer hauls per month and big savings for your business. Fewer hauls and compacted waste will also result in a positive impact on our community and our environment by taking up less space in our local landfill sites. Schedule your company's free demo today. Call 225-497-0101.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches.
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
The players.
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
The recruits.
Show some passion and some heart.
And those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
All those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU talk.
What a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and our hosts, Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo.
Three great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
Tiger Rag Radio. This is Glenn Guilbeau, editor of Tiger Rag Magazine, with executive editor Todd Horne, and we're joined by college football writer supreme Ross Dellenger from Yahoo Sports, formerly at The Advocate. You covered a lot of great Texas A&M LSU games when you were at The Advocate, but this one coming up Saturday night in College Station, it may be the most significant as far as the standings. Both teams are the only ones undefeated in SEC play this year. How much of a surprise is that to you?
Yeah, I think it is a little surprising not to have, joining them at least, not to have the Texas and Georgia and Alabamas and maybe Tennessee's, all of them with a loss. But it is probably a byproduct of the way the SEC schedules came out with all those teams playing one another. Texas and Georgia obviously played Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama. They've all played each other. So it's kind of probably a byproduct of how that's shaken out. But, I don't think to start the season, both of these teams lost their season opener to a non-conference opponent. USC obviously in Las Vegas for LSU, and then Texas A&M lost at home to Notre Dame. And I think after that, to think that they've won every game since is pretty surprising. A&M, had to beat Arkansas on a neutral field, went to Florida, and LSU obviously got the big win over Ole Miss. So they've played some pretty solid competition, and to know that they've gone through that and won all the games up until after losing week one is pretty surprising. But probably speaks to the development. Mike Elko at Texas A&M is in his first year, and I don't know what was expected necessarily in his first year. I think a lot of folks believe that they would struggle a little bit, the Aggies, but man, they have played really well, and he's a pretty notorious defensive type of guru, Mike Elko is, and you can see that in how how Texas A&M has been playing, and so that's really kind of stuck out a little bit when you look at A&M. I don't think any team except Notre Dame has scored more than 20 points against Texas A&M, and Notre Dame scored 23. So they've been playing, or Mississippi State this past week actually scored 24, which is a surprise. But they've been playing really good.
Right. You
look at LSU, and they've obviously playing good, right? Blake Baker and the DC's got them playing really well too. But it's LSU's offense that always, I think, catches folks' eye. They've got some electric players on offense that starting with the quarterback that's really impressed.
Well, Elko is winning with Jimbo's players, kind of like Nick Les won with Nick's players, Ross.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well,
always.
The interesting thing is if LSU gets by this game, I think they got the advantage because they're going to be to win the SEC or get into the playoffs because they're going to be favored in the rest of their games. Alabama does not look that good anymore. The other teams they have is Oklahoma, Vanderbilt could be trouble. But they could be in the driver's seat. Who do you think is the best team in the SEC right now?
After seeing the Texas Georgia game and being on hand for that one, it would be a little surprising, not to say Georgia to answer that question. And it's crazy to say that because I was at the Georgia Alabama game and when you look up at the scoreboard after the first quarter, basically, and it was 28-0 Alabama. It's pretty wild to think that actually did happen. But it's something with Alabama and Georgia. Georgia just can't seem to get over that hump with Alabama. And whether it's mental or what, I don't know. But it seems like they beat everybody else they play. In fact, I think they won like 51 straight games. Dating back to, I don't know, 2021 or 2022. In that span, they won, I think it's 51 straight, not counting Alabama. They lost to Alabama 3 or 4 times, I think, during that stretch. So I'd probably say Georgia, I think, probably, after seeing them up close and personal. When they're healthy, they've got all their defensive players, and they did return most of them for the Texas game. I would probably say Georgia, but then after them, there's this group of like 5 probably teams that really just kind of are jumbled all up together. Tennessee and Texas and A&M and LSU, all kind of in that mix.
Trains are everywhere. You should always expect one, even on private property. Only cross tracks at designated crossings that fit your equipment. If you don't fit, don't commit. Look, listen, live.
Hey, Ross, you, if I'm not mistaken, in your Yahoo Top 10 article that you released like yesterday, I guess, you did have Georgia third, but that's the only SEC team you have in your top 10. Is that because you think the next tier are not really top 10 material right now, or do you think they've just cannibalized themselves to the point where they're not meriting a top 10?
It's really just because I hate the SEC. I'm completely biased. That's really what it is. It was tough. It's really it came down to putting in one of those teams in that grouping of LSU, A&M, Tennessee, even Missouri is in there, and Texas, obviously. Like, there's like 5 one-loss SEC teams there. And they're kind of, to me, maybe not exactly even, but they're pretty close. And it was like I couldn't pick one of them. And so it was like you either put most of them in or none of them. And so right now, at least for this week, I didn't put any of them in. And, of that group, I think a lot of people would probably rank Texas and in A&M maybe higher than most. And we got to remember, A&M lost to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is my 9th ranked team on that list.
And they lost to Western Illinois.
Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois, yeah. So it's hard. I would imagine, after this week, a lot of things will change, but it's tough, ranking these teams. It's kind of a crapshoot a little bit. Obviously, that group of 5 one-loss SEC teams, there are a couple of team programs in there that probably should be ranked in the top 10, but it's hard when you have undefeated power conference teams like Indiana and even BYU and Iowa State of the Big 12. They haven't lost a game. Are they as good as some of these LSU, Tennessee, whatever? Maybe not, but they are undefeated, and and so but it's tough. It was a tough ranking to leave out those teams. But the A&M, the A&M issue, losing to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame being my 9th ranked team, you can't, it's hard to argue that. And then LSU, LSU's loss to USC is looking worse and worse.
Yeah, they're 3-4.
Yeah, if they continue to lose, and then Tennessee lost at Arkansas, who lost at a Big 12 team, Oklahoma State, and it's just
should have lost to Florida.
Crazy.
Yeah, you can go down the rabbit hole. It's amazing doing those rankings.
So in short, if LSU does beat Texas A&M this weekend, or vice versa, that team does take a step forward in your mind as well as the national mindset.
Yeah, especially if LSU were to win on the road in College Station. I don't think there would be any doubt that and as Glenn mentioned, when you look at LSU's remaining schedule, it really does set up really well if they can get this one in College Station. They'll almost, I would guess that they would be ranked in my top 10, and they're ranked in the AP top 10, I believe, at number 8, and I think they would probably climb into my top 10 if they won on the road at College Station. But you look at the rest of their schedule at home, against an Alabama team that is incredibly undisciplined and doesn't seem to play very well at all on the road. We've seen, and then they got to go to Florida, which can be tricky. Florida's playing a little better, but they're 4-3, and then they play. They get Vanderbilt at home, and again, that's not a normal Vanderbilt team, but you got, it's still Vanderbilt, and it's at home, and then you got an Oklahoma team that can't move the ball at all offensively to end the year. So, yeah, it really sets up well, and I would guess over those last 4 games, LSU, especially if they win at College Station, will be favored to win all those games. So it's shaping up to be a big one Saturday night there in College Station for A&M too. I mean, you look at A&M's schedule; it's virtually the same. It's very similar when you talk about favored, would they be favored and stuff. I mean, they go to South Carolina, I think, and they go to Auburn, and they have New Mexico State, and then they finish up with Texas, which is their big one ranked game left.
It's time to start betting on yourself. Louisiana 988 can help if you're dealing with tough emotions caused by gambling habits. You can share as much or as little as you want, and it's completely confidential. It's free, available 24/7, and most people who reach out report feeling better right in the moment. Call or text 988 anytime.
So, Ross, I don't want to dump this on you, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway. Is the college football playoff expanded to 12 teams likely to last, or are we looking at things like Project Rudy in Nashville this past couple of weeks changing that quickly moving forward?
Yeah, it's. I don't know is the answer exactly what the real quick answer. I think, to give everybody an idea of how, because this can get complicated, but this year, 2024, and next year, 2025 is set, right? We'll have the 12 team, and the format is set as well. 5 automatic qualifiers for conference champions and 7 at large, and then the 4 byes for the conference champions. Starting in 2026 is when it could change. There are guarantees, though. They were made back in the spring among the CFP leaders. They were guarantees. And the guarantees are that for 2026 through the end of the contract, which is 2031, I believe, for six more years, you will have these guarantees. And the guarantees are each power conference has to have an automatic qualifier, and the group of 5 gets an automatic qualifier. And then the last guarantee is that Notre Dame, if it finishes high enough, because it's an independent, it will get an automatic at-large spot. If it finishes, I think, in the top 12, if they're 12. But everything else is up for debate. So the number of teams in the playoff, it could change. Maybe we'll go to 14, maybe even 16. And then how the AQs and the at-larges are formatted, that's up for a possible change, as well as the selection process. And who controls all this change? mostly the SEC and the Big Ten.
Right.
The other leagues ceded power to them in the spring during the negotiations because, honestly, the SEC and Big Ten said, we either get control over these decisions or we will go do our own thing. And so they ceded power. And so I don't expect any real serious talk about a future playoff format starting in 2026 and beyond until the spring, probably until after this playoff. But I'm certain it will probably change. If it only expands by 2 or 4, maybe that's it. But it'll almost certainly change.
Well, if we don't like whatever they decide to change it to, all we need to do is be like Texas fans and throw beer bottles out onto the field, and it'll delay things for about 5 minutes, and then they'll make unprecedented calls. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was I've never seen anything like that in pro football and high school football and college football. I've never seen a judgment call made by an official be announced to the crowd, the ball be marked for play, and then the head referee confers with the others and then announces that the call has been reversed. And it added drama, obviously, that there was time for that conference of officials, which they had not originally gathered to talk about the call. From what I saw, they didn't really gather until there was a pause in the action when the beer bottles and the water bottles were thrown on the field. So it was pretty bizarre and not a great look, certainly for the SEC, and not a great look for officiating in general. Did they, in the end, get the call right? Probably so. It probably wasn't pass interference. But the way it happened is certainly not a precedent you'd want set.
We're gonna wrap you up on this. We're talking to Ross Dellenger from Yahoo Sports. Ross, do you believe Sarkisian when he said that they put Arch Manning in the game briefly just to give Quinn Ewers a reset? Is what he said. Is that what you thought happened?
No, that's not what I thought. I don't buy that one there, Sark. I do not. I think he was hoping that Arch Manning would lead to would play well and lead to some points in ball movement, which they really needed. They were, my goodness, that was about as bad of an offensive start as you could have in a big game. And so I'm not believing that one.
Right.
I think that probably he was hoping for more success from the quarterback, and that the fact that he didn't get it, it's easy now to then say, we were just doing it to calm Quinn or whatnot. I kind of rolled my eyes at that one.
All right, Ross Dellenger, thanks a lot for joining us on Tiger Rag Radio. Safe travels. I know you're out to Navy. What game are you at Saturday?
I'm actually home.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm home Saturday, thankfully. So it's been a long couple of weeks. I went to Eugene a couple of weeks ago. It's a long trip, and then Austin's a pretty long trip too. So it was nice to it's going to be nice to get home, stay home for a little bit.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for your time. We'll be back with more Tiger Rag Radio right after this.
Get ready to make some noise this October with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Join us for the 11th Annual Baton Rouge Maker Fair on October 19th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., where creativity and music come together. From live performances to hands-on workshops, there's fun with a beat for everyone. Visit batonrouge.makerfair.com for details. Brought to you by your East Baton Rouge Parish Library, where creativity never stops.
All right, that'll be it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Glenn, Todd, and Ross for the discussion. We'll be back later this week, but until then, stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all your latest LSU sports news.